And so being there, it kind of affected me in a couple of different ways. I got to see both sides of the spectrum. I got to see my mother get up and go to work. Even though she was a single mother, had a hard time raising a son, then she later had my little sister, but she still got up and she went to work, and she did it the honest way. My friends up the street, they were struggling the same way. They lived the same way. They slept on the floor the same way. They didn't have beds, right? And so when I started playing sports, the thing that sports did for me, I think the most important, it wasn't just opportunity. It gave me exposure. And so I remember the first time I went to my coach's house, and I was like, man, like his kids got their own room. Like they got their own beds, right? Like they're living. They don't have to rush to the dinner table to try to make sure they rush to get the food because they don't have as many people in the house. Whereas with us, you got 14, 15 people at one time in the house. You got to rush to try to eat sometimes, right? And so when I got to experience a different side of life, I remember coming back and talking to my cousins, and I was like, it's a different life out there. And they were like, what do you mean? I was like, it's a different life. Like, it's people that don't live like this, right? Like, this is not normal. And they couldn't fathom it, right? Until we were with my coach one day, and I remember he bought me my first steak, right? And I came back home and I was like, man, coach bought me a steak. Man, I got a steak, right? And I was so hyped. But what it did for me was it made me realize that people didn't have to live like that if they didn't want to. I felt as if in my household, I had so much built up. I wouldn't say anger, but it was misplaced understanding, right? Because I'm coming from this household where I sleep on the floor, right? With roaches, with rats. I'm not ashamed to admit it, right? And I would go to school and I would compete, I would work. And so when I met a kid that I was competing against, the only thing I felt I had the advantage in my whole life was my work ethic. And I took pride in that, right? I was never the biggest, the fastest, the strongest, never had the most resources, but I had a work ethic. And so for me, when I got on the field, it was like I was free, right? I was free from my household, that 2-bedroom home with all the people. I was free from sleeping on the floor. Like this was the thing that my identity, and I could just be me. But also I could hit people, right? I could tackle people. I can inflict violence, not get in trouble for it. So it was a vehicle of expression that I felt as if I do this well, I can get my family in a better situation. If I do this well, I can get my mother off the double shift at Wendy's. If I do this well, I can get my own bed. If I do this well, I can get my grandmother a better living condition. If I do this well, maybe I can stop my uncles from selling drugs, right? And so for me, I viewed it that way, right? And I firmly believe perspective drives performance. And so my perspective about the game was different. And so therefore it drove my performance to be different. My situation was what it was at a very young age. And so my whole life, I wanted different for my family, ever since I was a kid, right? And my coach took me across town to play ball. And when we'd be riding home, we'd be riding through these neighborhoods, right? And we would see people in their living condition, right? And he would be pointing out different houses and people and just telling me about life. He was teaching me and molding me, right? And he was showing me that, hey man, like you don't have to live like that. And when that would be happening, every time I would go back into my community, I was there in the situation, but I was very much cognizant that it was a better life out there if I made the right decisions and right choices. And so it was almost like you come up in this situation of opposition and adversity that you're in. And then every single day you get to go out and you get to see a different life and you get to be free for a few hours. Then they bring you back into the opposition and adversity. So it's almost like you're taking a test, then they pull you out of the situation, they take you somewhere, they show you the answers to the test, then they put you back in the situation and they make you take the test again. And you know the answers, but the opposition and the adversity and the current of it is so strong that for most people, they forget the answers. And for me, I wanted to be laser focused and keep the answers so I can make the right decisions and choices so I can pass what I felt at the time was the ultimate test. So I would be in the park late when I was a kid and after football practice because my mother worked a double shift. And so I would stay there and I loved the game. And when she would pull up in the park, most of the kids would be going home and I would be sitting there on the bench. and she drove at the time. It was an old Buick Regal, and hubcaps off the car, seats torn up, car was all beat up, but we loved it. It was my mother's car. And she would pull up and get out, and I would hug her, kiss her, and I would say, Mom, if you don't mind, can you sit in the car and turn on your car lights? I gotta do some extra drills, gotta go to the NFL, so you'll never have to work another day in your life. And I knew my mother was tired, right? And my mother never said to me, nah, boy, let's go, get in the car, let's go home, right? Like, bump that, not doing that. She would always go sit in that car, and she would turn on those car lights, and I'll be out on the field, I'll be running laps, I'll be doing agility drills, I'll be running sprints, chasing this dream to go to the NFL. And for me, that level of sacrifice was the thing that drove me and still drives me until this day, right? That's why when I competed, it wasn't just about a sport for me, right? Like I looked at competition, I looked at work ethic, I looked at dedication, I looked at commitment, I looked at sacrifice as this is life for me. This isn't about a sport. This is about things that I can extract from this sport and apply it to everyday life to make me somewhat of a decent human being, right? And so when my mother did that for me, that made an impact and an imprint on my soul, right? That I take with me even until this day. The way it worked for me with my scholarship to college, so they have a group of athletes, and every school has an allotment, a number of scholarships that they get every year that they can give to kids all across America. So Tennessee doesn't just have to recruit Tennessee. They can go to Georgia, California, they can go to London if they want, they can go anywhere to give a kid a scholarship. So it's the best of the best that they feel fits their scheme, their needs. And so Tennessee came to see me my senior year, and I was a small guy. I was really fast, really tough, gritty kid from Atlanta. And they offered me a scholarship, right? And on the spot, I was like, man, I'm coming, I'm going. And for most kids, it's a system and a process to where you take the visits, you go, you see the university, you see what they have to offer, then you make your decision. And so they told me, we want you to come up on a visit. I was like, I don't need it, I'm coming. They said, what's your plan in college? I said, I want to graduate in 3 years and go to the NFL so I can help my family. So freshman year, I ended up playing as a true freshman. Not a lot, but I played a lot of special teams, and I got in a little bit as a defensive back, right, which was my primary position. Coming into my sophomore year, I played a lot. I had a really good season. Things were going really well. I had great spring. I was doing well in the classroom. And coming into my junior season, I was as strong as I'd ever been, as fast as I'd ever been. And I was looking like an NFL prospect. So things were going extremely well. And so at the beginning of my junior year, my coach came to me and basically said, hey, Ink, man, you're projected draft pick. Like NFL teams scouting you, they love you. All you got to do is do what you've been doing and you'll get a shot. You'll be an automatic multimillionaire. You can take care of your family. Right? And I come out the first game we play against California Bears. I execute. I have a great game. We get the victory. And we're going into the second game against Air Force. Tough group, disciplined group. Fourth quarter rolls around, 2 minutes left. And so usually in 2 minutes, the game is basically about to be over. And so the quarterback drops back, throws it to a guy, he catches it, and I go to make the tackle. That's supposed to end the game. And as soon as I hit him, right, something different happened that never happened to me before in my life. Right, my body goes completely limp. I fall to the ground, I black out. That exact day, September 9th, 2006, it was a day that, I did everything the way I always did it, right? I prepared for the game the same way. I listened to the same music. My pregame routine and ritual was the same. And in that game, when I went to make that tackle, I went at it the way that I always went at a tackle. But for some strange reason, when I hit him, every breath in my body left. When I came to, my teammates were standing over me like, Ink, get up, let's rock. I was like, I can't, right? I can't move. There was a shock going through my body. I couldn't feel anything. But me thinking it's just a stinger, shoulder injury, nothing too serious, right? And when they get me over to the hospital and they run their test, and then they bring me back into a room, and my mother had just left the room, kissing, praying, kissed me on my head, praying, and saying, Ink, you'll be fine, right? And when she walks out, the doctor runs in and says, guys, we got to rush this kid back to emergency surgery. He's about to die. And so the next morning I woke up, I was grateful that I was still alive, right? And I think because of the seriousness of the situation, right, it made me view football in a micro way, in terms of I love the game, right? It hurt that my career ended, right? It hurt it, right? But I was there. My life was spared. Like if they didn't catch that my artery had busted and I was bleeding internally, I could have went to sleep that night, and the next morning, the title on the newspaper would have been different. It wouldn't have been Inky Johnson suffered possibly career-ending injury. It would have been Inky Johnson lost his life last night from a tackle made in the game. And so it made me view it differently. And so we all go through adversity, opposition. I think that's the thing that makes us all in common as people, right? No matter if you're from London, Atlanta, Florida, California,